Welcome to the Vortex Nation podcast, brought to you by lovers of hunting, shooting, public lands, the Second Amendment, and good food.
All right, everybody, here we sit on the eve of the Vortex Extreme, the 8th annual Vortex Extreme. We're in Douglas, Wyoming, where are we at, Ruben?
We are at the Wyoming Law Enforcement Academy.
Absolutely.
In the day room.
We're in the day room. We've been putting in some long days getting ready for this match. Ruben is relaxed. He's got his feet up on the coffee table with his
Mismatched gold toe socks.
I think that's an expression. You're expressing yourself, and I like that.
I feel like we're on track to explain every detail of this room.
Let's not talk about the lampshades.
The accommodations have been fantastic. It's great to be here. It's like dorm life. We're in the day room. We're not watching television. We're podcasting. Like I said, we're on the eve of the Vortex Extreme.
Big move for us this year.
Really big move.
Big move.
All right, Vortex Extreme. It's an extreme long-range match, right? And you said it's the 8th annual.
Long-range match.
It's where endurance and accuracy meet.
Endurance and accuracy meet, right?
Endurance
So
race,
you are essentially hiking through the mountains while then being interrupted in your hike conveniently by shooting stations, long-range shooting stations. Could be anywhere from like 200 yards to a mile, right?
Yep.
And so that's what the Vortex Extreme is. Now, when Ruben says a big move this year, for those of you who are familiar, what does that mean, Rube?
Up until this year, we've actually been able to partner up with Spirit Ridge Rifle Golf in Tremont, Utah. The Peterson family have been our gracious hosts, and this year we weren't able to use that venue, and so the governor's office here in Wyoming graciously extended us the opportunity to move our event here to Wyoming, just leading up to the Wyoming State Fair. And so here in Wyoming, they have a very strong support of the Second Amendment and shooting sports, and so we've found ourselves a new home, it seems.
Yeah, hopefully. I mean, that is an aspect that can't go underrepresented. I mean, the state of Wyoming and the governor's office, we've been put this on in conjunction with those guys with strategic match design and us here at Vortex getting this put together at the new venue. The Wagonhound Ranch, I mean, that was one thing that the state played a huge part in securing the Wagonhound Ranch. They've never had a match out there before. I mean, nobody's ever shot an event out there. I mean, that's one thing that's super unique about where we're at this year. The country's absolutely breathtaking.
Yeah, on the hunting side, Mark, I mean, for you, the Wagonhound is probably a place that, and for many listeners too, something that you might have heard of in the past, right?
Absolutely. I know for me personally, when we had those first conversations, like, oh yeah, we might be able to have it on the Wagonhound Ranch, I was like, my ears perked up right away.
Yeah.
Like, I knew exactly where that was and the types of bulls that live there. And it's just, I know a few people that have hunted there and nothing but amazingly positive hunting experiences.
There's some stud antelope out there too. We've been out here now. Well, Paul and I came out back in June to kind of scout it out and see if it would be a place where we could host something like the Vortex Extreme, and we knew right away it was. And then of course coming back this last week and starting to set up. I mean, we've been able to take in some beautiful scenery, see some awesome animals, and some trophy animals.
Absolutely. Paul and I got into a group. We saw 2 big 6s. Probably one was a 340 bull, and then there was a smaller bull with them. But yeah, this place it's pretty special.
Mm-hmm.
It really is, and I think personally for me, I've done some Western hunting, not a lot, not as much as some of you guys and guys like Ryan and stuff, but coming out here and doing a match that, I mean, the Vortex Extreme is not like your typical sniper match. It's not something where you're seeing a lot of military focus, a lot of competitive shooting focus. It's a match where a bunch of like-minded people get together, and a lot of the stuff is hunting focused. You're going through the country, and it's like, this is where I would be hunting this fall. And I think that the Wagonhound really sets the scene for a hunting match.
Absolutely.
You're in a place where if you were able to book a hunt here at the Wagonhound, you're in the same place you would be doing that.
And you're packing all your own gear throughout the entire match, too. So right now we have, what is it, an 8-mile course?
It's about an 8-mile course. You're going through, you have 10 shooting stations. One really cool part about the match this year here in Douglas is aside from being associated with the state fair, the governor's office, and overall the state of Wyoming, we're actually getting to hang out with some of the people that run the Wagonhound and getting to meet a lot of really cool folks.
Yep. No, and everybody's just been more than welcoming, and it's just been
it's exciting.
Truly a very special experience coming out and meeting these folks and getting to work with them and get their help.
Yeah, like Jim said, like you were saying, Jim, yeah, you do have to hike it. You do have to bring your equipment with you. You've got to get from station to station. At least you can carry water with you. And if you want to roll the dice, you can just plan on getting from station to station, not having to carry the extra weight. But the Extreme is a game that, you'll find I guess I never really quite understood the allure to some of the really lightweight hunting rifles and some of the very technical equipment, as Ryan would call it, for hunting.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of thought do more push-ups. But no, when you get out and you're in the middle of it, and I've run the Extreme, I think 3 times now, if not more. Yeah, you're halfway up that hill and you're like, I wish I would have got that carbon stock.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And the terrain out here too is not, you're not walking on I guess there's a couple of 2-track roads that we're hiking on, but that's just half the course. The other half of the course, you're like trekking through sagebrush and cacti and all kinds of crazy stuff. And then, as if that wasn't, tough enough, a lot of these sections are steep. We're talking about some pretty significant elevation change that you have to go through.
There's a couple of 10, 12, 15% grades that you're on.
You couldn't just show up to this necessarily. You couldn't sit on the couch all year and then just come to this match. Well, you got to prepare yourself. And then even once you finally get there, too, the other thing that's been interesting is if you look at all of our elbows right now, the dude's wearing short sleeves, all red, all cut up, all beat up, because we're not shooting off shooting pads. It's out here. You're getting down in the sagebrush and the cactus and the rocks, and that's where you're shooting from.
Yeah. I had an aha moment the other day when we got out here and started interacting with some of the folks on the ranch, some of the ranch hands, and some of the locals here in Wyoming. So I've been watching Magpul pretty closely for the last 5 years, and I'm thinking to myself, why does Magpul always have the long sleeve shirts? They got the button-up long sleeve shirt, tactical shirt market on lockdown. Yeah. I know why now.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's broken terrain, it's rough terrain, it's rocky in some spots, And,
dude, everybody makes fun of me back home when I wear my long Nike socks with my shorts. They all say, "Oh, who you trying to dunk on?" But out here, man, if I was wearing shorts in my shoes with my short ankle socks, my ankles would look like I just stepped into a thing of glass shards or something.
Yep.
It's rough.
No, I've been rough. When we've been working on the course, I've been wearing, pretty mild footwear, probably not appropriate footwear. And by the end of the day, my socks are loaded with cheat grass and all sorts of other stuff that.
So getting back to the match a little bit here too, and you mentioned some of the things, Rube, about how it relates to hunting, and it certainly does. And so, in fact, that's part of the inspiration behind opening up a couple of new divisions this year. So it used to just be basically open. You could run whatever you want, and dudes would show up with 20-pound rifles, and dudes would show up with carbon rifles that practically floated if you weren't holding on to them too much or well enough. But this year we introduced a hunting division or a hunter division, which involves a rifle and optic and bipod, everything. The whole package has to come in essentially less than 10 pounds.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. My background of 3-gun shooting is there's tons of divisions. You want to have another optic on your rifle? You're in open. You only want to have a 1-power optic? Well, it's limited. I just shot a 3-gun match that had 8 divisions. And that's cool. But, on the other extreme side, the Vortex Extreme in the past has just been run what you brung, kind of a anything goes. And some of those...
And you really would see a mix.
Yeah, we saw a big mix. And
mix of calibers.
We saw a lot of guys that were like, this is my long-range hunting rifle. And, it might not have been designed to shoot high round counts at super long range, but for a hunting match, we definitely wanted to reward those guys who shoot the gear that they're going to hunt with and give them their own division.
That's the coolest thing that I've seen, just in the couple days that we've been here, is you can really replicate that hunting situation. What you're doing out here on the Vortex Extreme is the same thing that these guys will be doing this fall.
Yep.
And fall's not that far off.
Right.
Right.
Yep.
I mean, a lot of these dudes might be. I mean, not everybody here is going to be rusty necessarily, but it's not bad to get in that kind of a mindset of being precise, having to pack your stuff around, having to set up.
Yep.
I mean, sometimes just even like the fact that each stage is timed, for example. And so you want to be efficient with the way that you get up to a stage, set up your rifle, set up all your gear. You want to be efficient with that. And then you want to be efficient with also engaging your targets too. So that gets your mind in the proper frame of mind to, I guess, keep using the word efficient, but you just got to be that way and kind of have your mind be sharp.
Yeah, well, I mean, it really, in some ways, it simulates, with that time component and that physical component, it really simulates that high pressure scenario where a person might get into in a big game hunting situation.
You can sit out there on a 100-yard, 200-yard, even 500-yard bench rest all day, but you're not going to get out of it what you would get coming out here and hiking these hills and shooting those
To
long
set
targets.
the stage a little bit for listeners, you might go to a PRS match or 3-gun match or whatever, and you might just have targets that are set out at just random distances. And that will work. Test your skills. Absolutely, it tests your skills. But when we're out here, Travis, myself, Mark, Jimmy, and we're designing the stages, we're looking at, you get up to the edge of a hill or you're shooting off of a platform or something like that. You might start at a 200-yard target, and then there'll be an opening down at 350, and there'll be another opening at 500, and then another shot at 700.
Yeah.
That really simulates getting up to an animal, having multiple different shots as that animal moves away from you.
Yep.
And so that was one thing we all tried to keep in mind, and we talked a little bit about it beforehand with some of the people that were kind of deciding where the targets go. But on stage 10, you get up to it, you walk up to the shooting station, and you lay down, and you have a target right away at 200 yards.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next target is 350. And then the next target's 515. And then you go to the right, and you shoot it about 80 yards to the right and just a little bit farther. But it really simulates if you come up to the edge of a hill, and you got a big muley, and you lay down, and you have 4 different opportunities for shots as that animal moves away from you.
Dude, and stage 10 is no joke because there is an antelope that hangs out at stage 10 that during sight-in we've almost shot like 3 times.
Yep.
That antelope just goes prancing right behind the target. I mean, you whoever set the target in that exact spot knew that area because they set that target where that antelope likes
It's
to
funny
hang
that you
out.
say that because when Paul and I came out here in June to just scout things out, Paul was like, well, let's look at this and kind of see what's going on. And when we pulled up, and Dax and Dustin, the ranch staff, and then guys that are in charge of the guiding for hunts here at the Wagonhound, they're like, well, what do you think of this? And we kind of pulled up and parked the UTVs and got out, and we're looking around, and sure enough, there's this big mule deer buck just right on the horizon. And I was like, I think this will do.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Awesome.
We should be able to make this emulate a hunting scenario.
Yep.
And there's a target there.
So can you talk? Okay, we've talked about the hunting thing and the hunter division. Can we talk about also we've added in a gas gun division?
Yeah, I mean, when Mark and I started talking a little bit about possibly having a different home for the Extreme, we also talked about maybe adding some things that we saw as kind of a way to serve our customers. And we have a lot of customers that like the gas guns, and I'm one of them. And so the AR, modern sporting rifle platform, whatever you want to call it, is a very viable hunting platform.
Absolutely.
For a weapon
and getting way more common. I mean,
it is. Yeah, it's not just a tactical. It's not just something that you would see in law enforcement, military competition. It's actually, when you think about the AR platform, I really experienced it in hog hunting this year in Texas. I don't think there is another platform I would choose over the AR platform for hog hunting. I mean,
for that.
Fast
Right,
follow-up shot. You have accuracy in many cases as good as a bolt gun.
Yep.
You'll always have somebody that wants to say that bolt guns are much more accurate and stuff, but in many cases, ARs can be just as accurate as bolt guns if you got the right gun. And so we felt that adding a gas gun division would not only add a little bit of challenge to the course, simply because gas guns typically have shorter barrels, and that bullet's not going to be at as high of a velocity typically, but they're heavier typically than a bolt gun of a very similar variety, and so that gas gun division is good. I think we have 7 teams in it.
Yep.
Out of about 44 teams. So we had a good turnout by 8 teams in hunter and 7 teams in gas gun, and so we really it'll be fun watching. I think because
it'll be fun, and that's a division. Talking with a few guys, and just I mean, we did have a fairly short timeline, short leash to get this done this year. But talking with a few guys, it sounds like that's something where I think we could see some growth in that division.
You could, yeah. I hope we see some growth, and I think you will, because I think we'll be pretty, maybe not surprised because of the way we're talking about it, but I think that you might be surprised seeing the results. Because out here in the open terrain out here with winds always changing and sometimes pretty significant winds, when you get down behind the gun and you have a target out at long distance, if that wind dies down or you figure out what the wind is doing, that first shot happens and that second shot can happen right away.
Yep.
Whereas with the bolt gun, you might have winds that are completely different between shots.
Right.
And so not only the not having to work the action between each shot being a good thing when you're engaging a target, but simply they might just have better times on the stages.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Well, and adding those divisions, the spirit of the Vortex Extreme has always been a very inclusive event. And I think, adding those divisions is just going to really help promote that. I mean, this event is truly about bringing shooters together. And the more shooters we can bring together and be less exclusive, I think the better.
It'll be awesome because we can get some of the guys that in the past had shot the Vortex Extreme once or twice. We actually had a really good participation rate in terms of people coming back a second and third time.
Oh, yeah. There's some people that have done it every time.
It's probably over about 50% of returners versus newcomers. And this year we have a lot of newcomers just because we are, several hundred miles away from where we've had it in the past and changed the dates a little bit and stuff like that. But a lot of the feedback that we had gotten in the past from the people who had shot the Extreme was good feedback, and we want to hear it. But like we had heard, it's hard to shoot the same match as somebody with a gun that's much more accurate or something that is maybe a match rifle, something like you would see in PRS or NRL. And the guys, shooting as 200. Some can be even inexpensive rifles that.
Well, yeah, you don't. I think a person that maybe wants to enter in that hunter class is going to be a lot less intimidated or possibly less intimidated that you aren't competing against, like a more PRS type long range gun.
Yeah, when someone pulls out a chassis gun that's got a friggin' 24-inch barrel and all kinds of every doodad and thing hanging off.
Barricade stops and expensive bipods and Arca Swiss rails and stuff like that.
Yeah, dude, come on out with a wood stock.
Yeah,
Steve
McIntosh had some words to say about the guys that bring like 15 different bags to matches and like bags under their elbows and bags under their knees and
hey man,
bags
on bags.
But I mean, there are definitely places for that, and the Vortex Extreme is a match that has a very good participation by our industry friends. Right, they do a lot of support for us, and so hey, I mean, there's some KRG rifles or chassis on the table. And that's a very tactical / competition focused product, and it's on the prize table right next to Badlands Pack.
Yep.
And so we want our sponsors all to also see that
both things would come in handy.
Both things are very welcome.
Yeah.
And I saw the guys that were pulling stuff off the prize table tonight. Were like some guys would come up and they got a camo hat on with an elk shirt, and they went right for that pack. And then you saw guys that were wearing the grunt style gear and stuff like that, and they're going up and they're grabbing the bulk pack of bullets or a chassis.
That is kind of wild about the Vortex Extreme. Really, is like, okay, first off, too. I mean, we're talking about the Vortex Extreme. Obviously, we're Vortex. Obviously, we want people to show up to this match. Can we admit the fact that probably like we want everybody to show up to this match, or we want as many people to come to this match as possible? We're not like making any money off of people coming to this match, really. I mean, right? Like, I'm just trying to say, like, basically, like, we want people to come to this match because it's, like, a really cool match. It's a good time. We like to put it on, and have a great match people can have a fun time at. I guess, really, that's just my just my, like, little caveat to throw in here that, like, I don't want to sound like we're plugging the Vortex Extreme as, like...
giving a sales pitch to...
Yeah,
right.
I mean, really, it's just a fun match.
I mean, it started right as like, hey, we're a bunch of guys that like to shoot, and this is
Yeah.
before my time, right?
Yep.
But it started as like, hey, let's go out and practice our hunting skills
Right.
and our long range shooting stuff before the season started. I mean,
Yep.
Mark, Dave, Dave and Sam have shot it, and
Yeah,
Mhm.
but it's
And
cool.
Joe.
It's cool because you'll get people here from like the hardcore mountain hunter background or industry area, and right next to those guys are like sniper dudes from.
from Fort Benning, they sent 3 sniper teams up for this
Yeah,
match.
there's 6 dudes here from Fort Benning, like fresh out of school. I'm almost positive from what I've
Sounds like it.
gathered. I don't want to speak for them. I might be slightly off on that, but they're here, and they sent them up, and
Wow.
they're running this thing, and it's
Yeah, they were going out to Zero today, and there was a couple of dudes with like straight up hunting rifles and packs going out to the sight-in range, and
Mhm.
like right after they went to the sight-in range, these 6 dudes from the army come out and they got their sniper rifles.
That's
Wow.
probably the single coolest thing that I love about this match, and that's the diversity of folks that come out for it. And I guess I just love watching all these people get together, but there's commonalities built in.
Yeah.
and everybody gets along. It's a mellow time. It's a really mellow vibe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Going off that, like you hear conversations the day before opening day of deer season or whatever. Everyone's kind of sharing their own stories and stuff. You hear the similar, or you see the similar thing right here at the Extreme. People are getting excited for hunting seasons or whatever they got going on. There's kind of that buzz in the room, which is
Yeah.
pretty cool to see.
Eric's a big hunter, and I think it's cool. Correct me if I'm wrong, but probably one of the first times
Oh,
you've
yeah.
been at like an event where a bunch of tactical dudes show up.
Absolutely.
And Eric leans more on the hunting side of things, and
yeah, but it's not. Yeah, and it's not weird. if
no,
you're
it's
like that,
not
you
at
know,
all,
Yeah.
because I think there's stuff to be learned from both sides.
Yep.
There is, yeah, and like you got all kinds of different backgrounds of people. You look at everybody's guns. Like if you're a gun nut, come to the Vortex Extreme, dude, because you will see everything.
Mhm.
You're gonna see 6.5, 47, 89, whatever Lapulas. You're gonna see 1,000,065 Creedmoors. You're gonna see 308s. I saw a dude who's gonna be running a 223 out here, and he's like ARs. You see crazy bolt guns, chassis guns, hunting rifles, wood stocks, like
Yeah.
It's awesome.
carbon fiber.
Yep.
$10,000 guns, and then Eric and I are running a set of Ruger American Predators with the new Diamondback Tactical first focal plane on it.
Yep.
Literally, our whole setup is at $1,000 with like bipod, cheek piece, scope, rings, gun,
Everything. Yep.
and you show up with that, and a dude with a $5,000 gun will come over and be like, "Oh, sweet setup, dude," and you're like, "Hey, thanks," and you just
Yeah.
Eric-
it is what it is.
It's awesome. Eric, I wanted to get your perspective a little bit. Like, this is your first Vortex Extreme.
Mm-hmm.
Going to be running and gunning tomorrow a little bit.
Yep.
Like, what are your thoughts going into this deal?
So for me, it's been so much on the front end because, like you were talking about, Rube, like I grew up deer hunting in the Midwest. So, like, my furthest shot has literally been like roughly give or take 200 yards. So here we come out here, and Jimmy and I were talking about this yesterday. You hear about all these long range shots and stuff. And for me, growing up in Wisconsin, it's like, man, 250, 300 yards, like, man, why? You don't need that. But you come out here and you're out west and you see like 300 yards and it feels like you could throw a rock and hit it. It's that close, after you're looking at like 1,000 yards. So that's what's really cool to me. And I'm really, just kind of excited to get out there, hike the course, shoot at some of these targets, learn more about dialing turrets and that kind of thing. Because to me, as a, from like a whitetail hunting background, it's always been just standard cap turrets. So it's going to be a totally new paradigm for me, but I'm really stoked about
Mhm.
it.
Yeah, and Eric brings up a point where you're talking about this is going to go into a little different direction than the Extreme. When you come out here and you've been in Wisconsin your whole life or somewhere like that, again, like Eric said, back home, we look at 300 yards and it seems like, dang, that's a poke.
Yeah.
You come out here and you said, yeah, it's not that crazy. And so then that kind of dovetailed into in our conversation about the long range hunting thing out here. And people kind of talking about like, oh man, over X yards, let's say over 300 yards on a deer, that's unethical.
Mm-hmm.
And then you come out here and you see a target that's 300 yards away and you're like, dude, if that were a deer, there's no way a deer would be there. It would see
Right,
me,
right.
like I couldn't get up on that thing that close unless you put a serious stock on it. or something. But
One cool thing, no, I totally agree with that. And one cool thing about the stages at the Extreme, and I would urge you to come shoot it if you get a chance, and if you're free in August and you don't want to sit around and watch preseason football, like come on out to the Extreme because it will put you in the scenario, right? Like like stage 7 where you're looking down in a valley.
huge angle shot.
Huge
downward
angle. I
shot.
mean, you're talking like 45-degree angle on a couple of the shots.
One of
and-
them's offhand.
And there's an offhand
Yeah.
shot. And so, yeah, I mean,
that
we've-
offhand shot is literally like you crept over the top of a
Yep.
knoll and you're like, there he is.
Yep.
Yep. And we're not shooting deer silhouette targets,
Right.
but we're shooting targets that are pretty close to vital zone size.
Yep.
Oh, absolutely.
And I think the tactical side, the competition side, we have some PRS shooters shooting it. We have some 3-gunners shooting it. We have a lot of hunters shooting it. From those standpoints, like, even though in the past, like, historically, it's kind of been a hunting match, this is a match that anybody could shoot and still, I think, improve upon skills and, like, learn a lot. But from that standpoint, like, I think it's cool when you come up over that hill and the RO's there and they're like, all right, are you ready? There's your targets. I'm excited about that.
That'll be good. It'll be really good. Yeah. It is weird, too. Like, we saw a 500-yard, 560-yard
Yep.
target. And out here in this country, you look at that and you're kind of like, oh, yeah, I can hit that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, back home, you see 560 yards, you're like, whoo,
Yeah.
is that a mile?
Yeah.
Yeah, the match will be different for everybody, I think, too. And I think people understand that about the Extreme, given the name of the Extreme, but also the fact that it's really hard to make everything equal. So a lot of matches you go to and you talk about competitive equity.
Mhm.
Talk about, is the person that shoots it in the morning the same as do they get to shoot the same match as the person who shoots it in the evening? And a lot of times that answer is yes, because match directors will find a way to set up a match that truly like is the same in the afternoon. You can't control wind, but they can control a lot of things, right? This match, the people who draw an early start time are going to shoot a little bit of a different match than the people who draw an 11 a.m. start time.
Mm-hmm.
But it works out fair because look at the guy who starts really early, gets up to stage 7. Those targets are all going to be in the shade. He might not have to shoot with high wind. They're going to have a harder time finding the targets than the guy who shoots it when the sun's straight up.
Yeah, you're going to have
Yep.
to back your magnification down a lot.
Yeah, it becomes
Or depending on, like you said, that sun angle, a guy might have the sun in his eyes
Yep.
on a certain stage where a guy later in the day may not have the sun
there's
in his eyes.
definitely a trade-off, and we tried to not put too many targets directly into the sun, but there's going to be some difficulties
Yeah.
even for the early start times. And undoubtedly, the people who start maybe at 10 or 11 a.m. won't have to deal with the shade, but they're going to have to deal with a little bit of wind. So it's extreme in every way.
Let's talk about one last thing here real quick. The extreme aspect of it is definitely evident, I think. And to set up an event like this takes a lot of moving pieces. So we work with Strategic Match Designs and kind of want to give them a shout out just because they've been really great to work with.
Absolutely.
They've been setting up this huge course. I guess the crazy thing is I don't want to say there's not a lot of matches out there. Like if you look for a match, the matches aren't incredibly hard to find, right? Long range matches, stuff like that. But they're certainly not happening in every city and every county and every state. A lot of times you have to travel for them. And matches aren't that super simple to put on. And there's a lot that goes into it. Like we've been out here, we're kind of half delirious because we've been out here for like 4 days in the scorching heat at high elevation, setting this stuff up. But that's been quite a bit. I mean, and the guys from Strategic Match Designs, they were also out here for the Governor's Cup 3-gun match too, if I'm not mistaken. And so those guys basically, I mean, it is like all hands on deck. You see these dudes running targets, running sign. I mean, everything that you didn't think of at a match, like literally just a sign that points you in the right direction so you don't end up in the course of fire, or little tiny pink flags on a tree that help you not end up in South Dakota instead of Wyoming.
Yeah.
I mean, it's stuff like that. I mean, they've gone around this 8-mile course countless times in the last couple of days.
They're very good at what they do. They have, a lot of years. Charles and Jason, almost 10 years of building matches. A lot of them 3-gun matches, but
Yeah, they're getting in the long range.
they're spreading their wings into the long range and some other stuff too. Some rimfire, some shotgun.
And you gotta love Charles' positivity.
Charles, man, that guy is getting after it, and he's an incredibly fun guy to work with. And Kyle, Charles, Jason, the whole crew.
Mm-hmm.
And from our standpoint at Vortex, Mark and I, we've been to the Vortex Extreme a lot. Jimmy, you've been there 3 or 4 times.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have we kind of had the vision of what the Extreme is. But, a lot of times we're back in the office getting stuff sorted out, and those guys are boots on the ground. They have the admin side down, they have the registration side down, and just the remembering we should put flags out so people know where they're going. Remembering that we need water at every station. Remembering that we need signs at all the stations.
Mm-hmm.
They got it going.
And understanding too, setting up those courses in each stage as well, your target placement and just wanting to make each stage super fun as well. I mean, they've been really good at that. Heck, we were out there yesterday, which is 2 days before the match is actually going. Charles comes down the hill and he's like, yeah, we just went up on 3 different stages and moved all the targets.
Mm-hmm.
But it was because they didn't quite like the way that they were set out at first. They felt either it wasn't challenging enough or it wasn't fun enough maybe to go through that array of targets. So they decided, every time they set up a stage, they have to look at it from the perspective of a shooter that's going to be shooting on that stage. And as shooters themselves, and they need to think would this be a cool stage for somebody to do?
Yeah.
And if they don't do that, then your match isn't quite as good as it could be. So.
I overheard those guys when we were setting up the banquet or the prize table today. They were in that other room talking with all the ROs, and they were talking about just how it's all about the experience for the shooter. Mm-hmm. And that's sweet. They're just making it all about the people that are coming out here and shooting, and I think that really says a lot.
Charles is very good again at just being positive, and Jason, Kyle, they're all I was talking to Charles today, and I was like, what do you think? Are we ready? And he's like, man, either way, a match is going to happen. Whether it's the same match that you had planned in your head or not, a match is going to happen as long as it's fun for the people. He's like, it's a win.
Yeah.
And that's being in the 8th year of the match. We have kind of a thing in our head, how it's got to be. But,
dude, there is either way, we're running through some of the most beautiful terrain in the world. And there are steel targets out there with a safe backdrop. And we brought guns.
MGM steel targets, by the way.
MGM. #love.
Thanks, Travis.
But yeah, something's going to happen. We'll be able to send rounds downrange, hit some steel. People got their dope.
Yep.
Good to go. Anyway, do you think we should wrap this thing up? Because it's starting to get late. We're starting to get a little loopy.
Last calls?
Last calls. Let's do it. Eric, start us off.
For me, it's super cool to be out here and actually see this country. I don't get outside of the Midwest very often, so to get out here is pretty cool. And just I guess what I would recommend for anyone is whether you're coming out here yourself with a buddy, whatever, make it a family vacation at that matter. It's such a cool area. Get out here and see some new country, get some shooting in while you're out there. So definitely recommend it.
That's a really good point. It's you can come out here and spend some time shooting the match, but there's so much more to this area, and you could easily spend a week out here.
Yep.
So is that your last call, Mark?
No, I was just commenting on Eric's.
Okay, I'll go. I think from my standpoint, I've shot the Vortex Extreme a few times now this year. I am going to be helping run it, and it's so exciting to see people's face when they look at the course and oh man, I get to run up that hill, and they're just excited about it. And also being in Wyoming, I'll miss seeing some of the people that we saw in Utah for sure. But it's really exciting to see fresh new faces. We've had a bunch of guys that are have never even shot competition before. They've never been on the clock to have a score registered, and they're just jazzed about it. So I'm pumped to see those guys, because you go out there and you bust your butt on the course, and halfway through you're like, man, what am I getting myself into? And then you cross the finish line and you're all just, man, I can do this. An 8-mile course, that's no joke.
I was about to say, Rube, for a second there, you sounded like a high school football coach, where it's kind of thinking, talking to all his players, and they're like, oh, man, you just need to think oh, man, I get to do all these sprints, when you were talking about that hill. Oh, man, I get to run up that hill. I feel like you're just, because, when you're actually running it, you look at the hill and you're like,
oh yeah, he's just terrible.
Yeah. Hey, no offense to high school football coaches. at all.
No.
Best time of my life.
Heck yeah.
Best 5 years of my life.
All right. My last call is if you are a hunter and you've got some hunts coming up this fall, this is a great event. It hits generally right about before a lot of the big game hunts are going to start. And it's a really solid primer. It's a really good check. If you haven't been getting off the couch as much as you should, it's a nice way to kind of see where your levels are and see if you want to ramp it up a little bit before you jump in. And then my other last call is the Vortex Extreme. It really is a cool event. It's got an extremely unique energy about it, and it just brings a lot of great folks together. And it really is all about having fun and bringing just like-minded people together that like to shoot guns and hike around.
Mark, you just had 2 last calls.
Yeah,
I know.
Note to self, you should be the host next time.
My last call. Hey, to you commuting there right now, don't skip my last call because I'm talking to you. Okay. And I have a question for you out there. So I'll get to the question. It needs some preface here. But all right. This match is super cool. When I first ran this match, this was my first ever experience shooting further than 400 yards. First ever time. I came out here. I happened to be shooting with a guy who works in our consumer sales area, in our tech support area, Travis Baran. Had no idea what I was doing. Had a Ruger American 6.5 Predator. It's the same one that I got here at this one. It's been at 3.
Different option.
3 of these extremes. And I just went and just did it. And luckily I had somebody experienced to run it with, and that helped me make it through. I hit targets at 1,200 yards. It was insane. And got a kick butt workout in, saw some awesome country. I don't get to make it out west very often. All right, super awesome. And Ruben said one of the cool things about the Extreme is it's like an over 50% return rate of people who've come to previous Extremes. That is awesome, and I think that goes to show how fun it is. But the one thing that I want to see happen is just seeing more newcomers to long-range shooting and competitive style shooting coming out to shoot matches like this. So I guess the part where it comes into you, the listener, on your commute right now, maybe you're in the parking lot to work. It's okay if you're 5 minutes late. Just tell them that the Vortex Nation podcast said it was okay. But we want to hear it. Like, tell us, give us feedback. If there was something where it's like, hey, I would have gone to the Vortex Extreme, but this is holding me back. That would be really cool information for us to know. If the thing that's holding you back is like, hey, I really want to go, but I don't have a rifle that could do that. I think, one, you'd be really surprised. Like, take your 270 out here.
Yep.
Seriously.
Greatest cartridge ever made.
Greatest cartridge ever made, right? Or like a 243 or whatever, or even a 223. There's some pretty long-range capable 223s, and are you going to have really great luck at a mile? Probably not, but a lot of these targets are between 300 and 700 yards. Yep. You can do that for sure. And, like, come out and do it with that, or, is what's holding you back maybe like, I just don't know enough about long-range shooting. Well, what would help you know more about long-range shooting? Enough to at least be comfortable. And that's cool stuff that I think we would all love to know, because one of the biggest things that I've heard Rube talk about, I've heard Mark talk about, I've heard a lot of people at Vortex talk about is just like, how can we continue to get more people into long-range shooting, or just really just shooting in general? And then it's really fun when you can put it into a competitive aspect too. When you go to the range is fun. It's like therapy, right? But when you sit at a bench and you shoot at a couple different distances, pack up, and then go home, it's like you can do that. But after a while, it's like, why don't you put a little like stake in the game, kind of get your adrenaline going a little bit?
I mean, if you've ever been in your backyard or at the range or on the farm or whatever with a bunch of buddies, and you say, "Hey, let's see who can hit that far target." Yeah. You've been a competitive shooter.
You have,
without knowing it.
And that little like tingly feeling you get in your stomach, that kind of like excitement there. That's what you're going to get out here times 10.
Absolutely.
Did that make you uncomfortable, Ruben?
Nope.
Okay. But anyway, no, we'd love to hear it. So like if there's a way if it's commenting in the comments below, if it's shooting us an email or hitting us up on social media, we want to hear it. What would make you want to come out and do the Vortex Extreme?
And if you know of a place where we can do it near you.
Yeah. Because I was just about to say, a bunch of people are probably going to be like, well, it's not near me.
Hey, nobody said we can only do just one.
The prize table alone should draw people out.
The prize table is unreal. All right.
Huge thanks to our industry friends who support our match.
Absolutely.
Huge thanks. Hey, at the end of this podcast, we should do one of those, when you hear a commercial, and they're like all the conditions,
Just
you know?
rattle them
We
off.
should rattle off our sponsors real quick. We'll record that later, MC Ryan. Sound good? Okay. All right, everybody. That's our last calls. We're going to do a quick thanks to the sponsors after this, but otherwise, thanks everybody for listening. Hope to see you one of these years at the Vortex Extreme. Yeah, we got to go to bed.
Let's hit the rack.
All right. See you later, everybody. Happy hunting and shooting.
Peace.
Like we mentioned, we want to give a quick shout out to those who helped out with the Vortex Extreme, whether that be sending some awesome stuff for the prize table or actually sending some equipment that was used out at the range during the competition. So first off, actually, let's thank the state of Wyoming for having us out there, helping hook us up with that Wagonhound Ranch location. It was absolutely incredible. Truly amazing to be able to work with the state of Wyoming on a project like this. Magpul, MGM targets, they had their targets out there that we were actually shooting at, some awesome stuff. Magneto Speed, they were there with some of the target hit indicators, so that way our spotters could be giving accurate hit and impact feedback to the shooters. We had Strategic Match Design out there. They were out there helping set up really the whole match, kind of the heart and soul behind making everything function. We had Mountain Ops out there, KRG, Gunworks. They had some killer rifles on the prize table for the winners of the open division. Really amazing rifles. Hornady was out there. Man, somebody won a lot of 6.5 Creedmoor from that prize table from Hornady. Special thanks to them. Proof Research, lots of barrels on the table. Rise Armament, tons of sweet stuff from AR parts to guns and things like that. We had Ruger, Mossberg, Phone Scope, Kuiu, Badlands packs, Faru packs, Brownells, Black Hills Ammunition, Defiance, and Camp Chef as well. Again, thanks to all of our industry friends, and if we missed any, certainly it is not that we didn't appreciate it. There was just so much support, overwhelming support for the Vortex Extreme this year. We greatly appreciate everybody who pitched in, and thanks again to all who came out as well to compete in the match. And we should also say one last shout out too for the volunteers who showed up to help out with the match that weekend. Really, really incredible that we had so many folks locally out there from Douglas, Wyoming, and the surrounding area come out to help, whether it be spotting or helping out with the event and making sure people got checked in where they needed to be. Really amazing. Thank you so much to all those folks as well. So thanks again for listening, everybody. Have a good one. Hopefully we see you out at the Vortex Extreme next year. All right, that'll wrap it up for this episode of the Vortex Nation podcast. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Hit that subscribe button so you can always stay up to date on the latest happenings over here at the Vortex Nation podcast. Leave us a review or comment down below. We want to hear what you have to say about the show, maybe what you like, maybe what you didn't like, so that way we can make these podcasts as good as they can be. You can also follow us on Instagram at Vortex Nation Podcast. We'll be posting about each episode released, so that way you can go back, find these things, maybe grab a little nugget of information that you can take with you to the range, out in the field, or maybe to the kitchen if we're talking about some good food. So, again, everybody, thanks, and happy hunting and shooting. We appreciate it. Have a good one.